Hello everybody, I'm Zenith Variant GAY25, the cutest of ghost buns, and welcome my friends to First Impressions, where I give my initial thoughts on a game after completing it over on my gaming channel. As always, check out the link in the description below for my full playthrough of today's game, as well as past and future episodes of Bun Plays. With that being said, while the name First Impressions may not be entirely accurate for today's subject, since I had already completed it back in 2014, that was nearly 10 years ago, and many of my memories of that first playthrough have faded in the same vein as Sonic 1. Besides, First Impressions after 10 years of not playing the game is not exactly a pithy title, and there are several things I learn each time I go through a game on Bun Plays. With that pedantic discussion out of the way, let's put on our running shoes as we discuss Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I wish I could put up my hands and be like, two, alright. As I stated in my primer video, by the time Sonic 2 came out, I was fully aware of the Sonic phenomenon and jealous that my cousin had a Genesis to play the series on. It wasn't until my early teenage years that I was able to play at a video game summer camp, and even then, that was not enough time to truly appreciate the game, even though I was having a blast being able to do so after all these years. In 2013, I played through the digital version of Sonic 1 and was rather mixed on the game, to be honest. But I decided to give the series another shot in 2014 with the digital version of Sonic 2. While I did personally enjoy the digital version of both games and the version on Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection, I was turned off a bit afterwards for several reasons. The main problem I have with both of these ports is that it is essentially just an emulated version of these games. It has interesting tidbits in the menu system, and it allows save states so you can actually complete the game in one sitting, but ultimately the experience felt hollow to me. Part of the issue stems from the fact that these ports don't have the manual of either game, leading me to miss certain aspects, such as the super spin attack or the super dash attack, reminding us all that rolling is a myth. The original manuals of Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 laid out what the moves were, but in the digital versions, and especially the Ultimate Genesis Collection, you are left in the dark unless you have read the manual prior to playing the game. The digital versions don't give you any instructions, whereas the Ultimate Genesis Collection gives you a picture telling you about the jump button and the D-pad letting you move. Nothing else. So, you're left thinking that this is just a standard platformer instead of a nuanced experience. The super spin attack allows you to spin into a buzzsaw to take out ground enemies while moving, whereas the super dash attack is the spin dash, where you can rev up and take out enemies faster. And yes, you spin, not roll. There's a difference, damn it. The other problem with the digital versions and the collection is that even with save states, the live system is still in place and it leads to constant save scumming, which is so boring to me. It's just not enjoyable, and I prefer to play a game as originally designed, even if it makes getting the Chaos Emeralds harder, because at least I'm playing the game and not repeating the same area over and over. There's just something inherently scummy about it. That is why I think both of these experiences caused me to take a break from Sonic for a while. The save states just change the pace of the game in a negative way. Luckily, Sonic Origins is the perfect answer to most of these issues, as I mentioned briefly in the last First Impressions video. In this remaster, save states have been replaced with infinite lives in the Anniversary mode, allowing you to fail as much as you want without having to reload. You just respawn at the last checkpoint and try again, which is infinitely faster and more accessible to me. There is still the option to play the game in classic mode with lives intact and all the bells and whistles from the Genesis release if you really want, but the Anniversary mode lets new players jump into the game far easier. In this mode, coins replace lives, allowing you to buy stuff in the museum for cool Easter eggs, but coins also let you retry special stages, removing any need that you had for save states. For a casual Sonic fan like me, this is much easier to get into and allows me to appreciate the games for what they offer instead of struggling to complete them in a normal fashion. There's even an in-game manual system before each entry in the franchise, giving you tips and tricks on what to do, including the spindash and other features. I never felt in the dark with the Origins version, although I do wish they discussed the super spin attack, because Phil had to instruct me on how to do it. Even so, the Origins release of Sonic 2 is my definitive edition. Although I haven't tried Sonic 1 Forever and Sonic 2 Absolute, so I'll see if those change my mind in the future. At the same time though, how does the core game hold up after all these years? Especially knowing that this game was rushed to production and had all sorts of behind-the-scenes problems. Well, honestly, while I do have some issues, Sonic 2 holds up surprisingly well. Playing through this today, it is very hard to tell that Sonic 2 was created in just under 9 months, with the director leaving halfway through the project, mostly because Sonic 2 takes what works in the first game and just streamlines it or improves it for the better. Instead of 3 acts per zone, we now have 2, which helps with the pacing in a very big way. 3 acts is a bit too long for me, to be honest, and this instead allows for more variety in the zones. You have 2 acts in one place, and then you zoom over to somewhere completely different, making sure each zone does not overstay their welcome. In the first game, there were several zones that just went on far too long or weren't super enjoyable, but now we have the best of the best level designs, painstakingly handpicked and redone by Yuji Naka and his team. This not only allows for a quicker feeling of accomplishment in the early stages of the game, but now we have far more zones than before, clocking in at 11. While there technically are only about a third more acts than Sonic 1, this variety reduces the monotony from before and just makes you feel like you're progressing through a much larger world at a faster rate. This is my preferred take on the Sonic formula, and I am rather sad that certain games in the future add more acts into each zone, from what I have been told. Sonic 2 also has a huge increase in quality when it comes to progression, since unlike Sonic 1, these zones are just so well designed. In the first game, at least half of the zones had major issues that kept me from fully enjoying them, but here I love the vast majority of the zones. Not only are there more branching pathways than ever before, but each area has a different gimmick that is fun and doesn't overstay its welcome. Emerald Hill feels like an expanded Green Hill zone, but adds in more verticality and layers. Chemical Plant is Labyrinth Zone meets Starlight, but keeps the speed and adds in elements to test your reflexes, not to mention the tubes. And Mystic Cave takes the puzzle elements of Labyrinth and the underground nature of Marble Zone, revs up the speed, but adds in mechanisms like levers that you need to pull or vines to ride to another level. It truly feels like they took the criticisms of the first game to heart and tried to improve upon the design of each level. Now, I'm not sure if this was because Yuji Naka had far more creative control than before, or if having to cut a lot of levels allowed for them to be more critical of their design, but I had a blast just going through all of these different levels. An interesting thing to note here is that one of the cut levels, Hidden Palace Zone, is accessible in the Death Pit of Mystic Cave in both the iOS and Origins remaster. It has been retooled by Taxman to be more reminiscent of Phantom of the Opera, and it's a cool Easter egg that shows the ideas that were left on the cutting room floor. It doesn't fully feel like Sonic to me, since there are elements that obscure the screen, and the boss fight against the giant tuba is a choice, but I love the water gun gimmick, and I feel it could have worked if given some more development time. Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. For all of my praise, and despite how much I absolutely adore most of this game, there are parts where you can tell this game was rushed. Now, the good news is that this mostly isn't apparent until near the end of the game, but the bad news is that it is apparent in the boss encounters, which, while exceedingly creative and better than the first game, have some really large drawbacks. I adore the Egg Drillster, Egg Hammer, and Egg Digger boss fights because they take a simple concept and add more to it, but they are very easy to cheese and don't offer much challenge. Granted, these are some of the early bosses in the game, but the Egg Bouncer is just as easy and not as creative. Oh joy, he has clones of himself that are easily defeated. Such an interesting boss fight. Yeah, not one of your best ideas, Eggman.
Kaplooey.
Then there are the bosses that I absolutely love the idea of, but hate the execution. Egg Poison, Egg Scorcher Mark II, and Egg Marine are all highly creative with unique attacks and ways for them to be defeated, but these are all over pits of lava, poison, or ocean that result in easy insta-death if done incorrectly, making them feel entirely cheap. Their hitboxes are also highly suspect, since half the time I can get in multiple hits, but then other times I phase through them, and the other half I get hit by nothing. It's frustrating, and ends up turning bosses that I should love into frustrating coin-gobbling tactics. Yes, I know this was designed with the arcade mindset to grab quarters from children, and not specifically for home consoles, seeing as Sega was still in that mindset at the time, but it is more frustrating than anything else playing this in the modern day. Then there's the Egg Claw, which is a boss I should love because I love pinball mechanics, but you are fighting against the pinball physics here. You can only hit him from above, and you have to know that you can jump off walls while using the spin dash, which is something that they also don't tell you in the game. I died to this boss so many times in the digital version until I figured out how to fight him, making me annoyed because, again, they didn't tell you how to do it. That's part of why I appreciate the anniversary mode in Origins so damn much. I died so many times to the Egg Claw, but even more to the ones over pits because of the placements of the boss and the abnormal hitboxes. It ended up extending my playtime so much more than need be until I learned how to fight them. Having an easy respawn helped immensely with the cheapness and took away some of the frustration. It's still not a good design, but at least there's a better way of getting through the game normally this time around. The absolute worst for me, though, were the bosses from Death Egg Zone, which you have to fight back to back with 0 rings. One hit, you're dead, and have to do it all over again. I spent 2 hours for bun plays just trying to take them both down because of this, and it is not fun. Now, Silver Sonic isn't too bad, although the hitbox on his hair is rather weird. However, his pattern is easy to figure out after a bit, and I was able to cheese him with time and patience. He's not overall too difficult. The Death Egg robot, on the other hand, took me forever because of the damn pointy claws. It is so hard to figure out when to attack during his walking cycle because of the 2D design of the mech. And even then, there aren't too many openings to attack. The best I found out for his walk cycle is before and after, but you have to position just right or you get insta-killed by his claws. Urgh. Fucking bleh. The better way I found to take him down after multiple hours of trial and error was to attack before and after the walk cycle, but mainly focus on the stomp attack and hit his head, which extends the battle by a lot, and I mean it. Silver Sonic takes 8 hits to destroy, which is perfectly fine, but the Death Egg robot takes 12, and it just feels padded when you can only do 3 or 4 hits per cycle. It is not exactly what I'd call the best ending boss in game history, and while I do love the visual design of this boss and all the other bosses, you can feel the crunch in their design based on the hitboxes and the death pits. It feels cheap, and that's not something I enjoyed. Especially that one hit for the final 2 bosses, like, that is not needed. You do not need that. I also felt like some stages near the end of the game had really poor enemy placement. Metropolis Zone is the only one in the game that has 3 acts, and man, did it not earn that extra length. The slicer placement is obnoxious in many instances, especially near the end of the final zone. But the Asterons are far worse, where in many instances it's impossible to not get hit unless you know exactly where they are and where to jump. And even then, sometimes I just get hit out of nowhere, from off screen. It is not as bad as Scrap Brain, to be fair, because I did eventually find a route and I didn't have nearly as many deaths, to be honest. But getting hit by slicers is the bane of my existence. Slicers. I also felt like Sky Chase dragged on far too long with an auto-scrolling level that is an interesting idea, but boring in execution. Also, the turtle lasers come out of nowhere, so unless you know where the enemies are ahead of time, you will get hit. The end of the game is a bit trial and error, especially with the middle of Wing Fortress Zone, which goes against the improvements made before, and a lot of this does feel like early Mario design. However, that is only 6 out of the 20 acts that I have issues with, and even then I don't have as much of a problem as I do with Scrap Brain or Marble Zone. They have a good layout and fun mechanics, but the enemy placement and trial and error aspect does leave a bad taste in my mouth. The trial and error aspect unfortunately continues into the special stages, which are no longer puke-inducing spinning, thank God, but the infamous half-pipe stages. There are improvements to the formula here, where instead of having 50 rings by the end of the stage, you just need 50 rings by a checkpoint, and you can jump into the stage, leaving far more chances to access a special stage because of this design choice. For example, Emerald Hill alone has 7 checkpoints, allowing you to acquire all Chaos Emeralds as early as Act 2, and I did manage to do that. This is a huge improvement, and in addition to this, there is a reward for getting the Chaos Emeralds this time round. While you still get an alternate ending for getting all the emeralds, which isn't as good as the regular ending to be honest, there is also the added benefit of getting Super Sonic, fresh off of Dragon Ball Z, introducing the Super Saiyans only a year prior. Much like the 7 Dragon Balls, there are now 7 Chaos Emeralds this time round, which turn Sonic into a Super Saiyan. I am still surprised nobody sued over this, because wow, Super Sonic is twice as fast, takes no damage from anything except for being crushed and drowning. He laughs at spikes and defeats bosses as if they're made of paper mache. I adore Super Sonic, but in order to get him, you have to get through the memorization of the half-pipe. Look, I like this design a bit better, since I no longer get motion sickness from the special stages, but they are just too precise. They ask for pixel perfection, because if you miss a few rings early on, you are not getting that emerald, buddy. Not enough rings. You missed 3 rings, you gotta start again. There you go. In my Bun Plays episode, I went through around 50 retries with coins for the special stages alone, because each stage requires so much memorization to complete. I really don't know how kids managed to get Super Sonic back in the day with this difficulty curve, or how they beat the Death Egg Zone for that matter, because these both took 2 hours apiece to complete my first time through. Granted, I hadn't played in 10 years, but still. The stupid thing is that I played through Sonic 2 4 times through for this video. Twice for Bun Plays, and twice for my own personal trophy list. The second time through, I managed to defeat the Death Egg Zone and get all the Chaos Emeralds my first try, because I had spent so much time memorizing everything. Sonic 2 has broken me, I swear. I'm not sure exactly what that says about me. Maybe it's because I did it in such a short time that I was able to retain the muscle memory for these stages. Maybe it's just harder when you don't know what you're doing. Or maybe I'm just a stubborn completionist. Who knows? Dr. Pepper, as we know, is the fuel that allows you to be good at Donkey Kong 64 and Sonic. Either way, the second time round was just insanely easy and I had no trouble at all. It is very much a case of trial and error memorization. And I feel like kids must have only beaten this game by playing it over and over and over again to get used to each boss in every stage. Still, I gotta admit that it is worth it once you unlock Super Sonic after all this trial and error. Once you have them unlocked, all you need to do is grab 50 rings, jump, and press triangle, and you will make 95% of the game a complete joke. While there are certain drawbacks to the form, such as losing rings each second you have him, and he is very hard to control for precise jumps, none of that really matters. He is a beast. He takes no damage, he destroys bosses like nobody's business. He is so damn fast that you can finish stages in half the time. It's amazing and so damn worth it for all of this power. Admittedly, he can die by crushing damage and drowning, but that's very rare, and even if you run out of rings, you can get more in the stage and activate it again. Even in the parts of Chemical Plant where you need to precision jump, you can just jump and glide over most of the hazards, so it's not exactly a handicap. However, you still can't use him in the final boss fight, because you aren't allowed rings, which is complete bullshit, but I digress. Why is this a tradition? As for the music, I love 95% of this soundtrack. There are a couple tracks that don't land for me, like the Supersonic or Special Stage themes, or some of the late stage Wing Fortress tracks, but that doesn't matter because so much of this just slaps. Chemical Plant, Hilltop, Mystic Cave, Casino Night, Oil Ocean. So much of this is an absolute classic, and no matter how many times I hear this music, I want to hear it again. It is just that good. Sonic 2 soundtrack blows the first game out of the water. So now we come back to the question that I asked in the primer. Does this game hold up despite all the behind the scenes issues and the rushed development time? Was this game a worthy successor to the first game in the franchise? Well, I have to answer with a resounding yes. Look, crunch is never a good thing. I hope I've made that perfectly clear. But somehow, despite all the issues and odds, they managed to make one of my favorite games of all time. Are there problems? Absolutely. There are problems in any game, but these don't detract from my love of Sonic 2. Sonic 2 takes so much of the problems I had with Sonic 1 and fixes them or streamlines them so that they aren't noticeably an issue. Are the bosses somewhat frustrating? Yes, but they are so creative, and at the end of the day, I find myself cheesing them more often now than ever before. Even the Death Egg robot. Are the final 6 acts full of poor enemy placement and lots of trial and error bullcrap? Oh hell yes. But once you know the trick, it's a breeze, and you can blast through even those stages as Super Sonic. Are the special stages much more difficult and anger-inducing when you miss the emerald by 1 ring? Most definitely. But Origins lets you retry these stages, and once you have them memorized, you can do them in your sleep. I think it's a testament to Sonic 2 that an hour after beating the game and processing that 2-hour video of me dying to the boss, that I wanted to play it all over again.
Though heaven knows why.
I went back that very day and beat him on the first try, completing the game in half the time I did in the Bun Plays episode. I can't say that of many games. It's this weird dichotomy of reward and frustration, but once you've beaten it, it's still so fun to go back and complete it, and I want to do it again very soon. Origins removes so much of the frustration, but even then, It's all about these small improvements for me. The pacing is so much better than 1. The stages have so much depth that I keep finding new pathways even today. And I can't get enough of this soundtrack. In my eyes, this is a game that's worth the frustration. Because when you're done, you not only feel so accomplished, but also want to play it again. Sonic 2 is a game every bunny should play. So what are you waiting for? Go and play it right now. Do it. In any case, I'll most likely do a full review of Sonic 2 in the future, but for now, I'm Zenith Warrior Princess, the cutest of ghost buns, and I will see you all next time when I discuss Sonic CD for the very first time. I am curious to see if it is as good as 2 is, or if it has as many issues as 1. With that being said, if you like what you see, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that you too can join the Bun Squad, my legion of cute, fluffy bunnies who watch my videos. You can also check out my gaming channel in the description below, on the banner of my channel, or in the info card up top. Plus, while you're at it, please feel free to vote on a poll that we're running for what franchise we'll be covering after the classic Sonic titles are finished. The options are Castlevania, Kirby, or both series interchangeably. Voting will end by the time I finish this block of Sonic, so you'll have plenty of time to put your vote in, but we would greatly appreciate it if you voted now regardless. And as always, don't forget to hit that bell to get notified of every new video. Have a good one, everybody, and just remember, rolling is a myth, spinning is the truth. Rolling is a myth, spinning is the truth.